Okay, perfect. So it is 12:30 on Thursday, April 30th, for anybody that's lost track of time. I know that I certainly have. It's hard to keep track of what day of the week it is. Thank you for taking some time to join me today. This is another session of the Stage Rutty Telek. What you need to know about your 401k right now, specifically talking about some of the volatility going on with quarantine. So we'll dive right in. A couple of the ground rules here. So designed to take about 15 minutes and hopefully valuable use of 15 minutes of your time. If you have questions, there's a Q&A button built into the Zoom app. And so please feel free to submit those and we'll address them at the end. And a reminder that I'm always happy to help address individual questions if you are more comfortable just one-on-one, or if you want to talk more specifically on your situation, please feel free to reach out directly. I'll have my contact information at the end. For anyone that I haven't met yet, my name is Craig Gingerich. I'm a certified financial planner, accredited investment fiduciary, and a certified health savings advisor. So a little bit of my background. Today we're going to be talking about 4 different things. So first is this concept of post-predictability, which if you haven't heard of it before, don't be alarmed. I'll explain exactly what it is. The second is talking about days out of the market. Then we'll do a little bit on tax smart moves and talk about rebalancing. So a little bit of backstory. My wife and I are moving in a couple weeks, so that's why the bookshelf is empty. It's not that I don't know how to read. We've just been packing up. And in the process, we started packing some of our DVD collection, and I took the opportunity to rewatch some of my favorites. So if you haven't seen any of these, they are fantastic. Now is probably the right time to do it. And so what each of these share in common is that there's a big twist, but it's also a little bit more than that. It's something that that they call in cinema called post-predictability. And it made me realize like how applicable this is to the investing world, to what we're trying to accomplish in our 401k plan. So the basics of it is when you're watching a movie, right, and you're watching, and then boom, right, there's a huge twist at the end. You say, oh my God, I never saw that coming. Then you start to take a look back at the movie and say, well, I guess there was a hint in the middle, and sort of closer to the end, there was another hint. And oh, at the start, like that should have been a huge, huge indicator, but I never picked up on it. And this is all by design, right? They design these movies to have what they call post-predictability, so that you can have this moment where you look back and say, oh, I should have seen that coming. And it's really interesting because our brains naturally gravitate towards these stories. When you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, right, we learn more from mistakes. Our brains are constantly trying to learn from mistakes and then adapt to avoid those mistakes in the future. A perfect example is if you picture like doing a practice test before an exam. We naturally remember the questions that we got wrong a lot more than the questions that we got right, because our brains focus on, if I made a mistake, I don't want to make that mistake again. The interesting piece of it is when you look at post-predictability, it's designed that you can't possibly know in the moment, right? Maybe looking at the movies, if you were really lucky, you could have had it figured out. But it's designed that you can't know it in the moment. You can only look back and say, well, it could have been predictable. And why this matters to you, why am I bringing this up when talking about the stock market, is it's directly related to trying to predict what's going on with the market. So if you take a look at a headline, right? So talk about the ultimate warning sign. On February 19th, the Dow hit a record high, highest point in history, right? We've never seen the market higher than it was on February 19th. Why didn't anybody, why weren't people just cashing out? Why didn't people see the writing on the wall? Well, mainly because this exact same thing happened 22 different times just in 2019 alone, right? The market's constantly putting out these signs, right? Putting out these indicators that it's easy to look back and say, oh, I should have seen that coronavirus was going to really affect the market. But when you look back on it in the moment, it was impossible to know. Right, we had SARS and West Nile and mad cow and all these different things that didn't have nearly the impact that COVID-19 did. It's impossible to know in the moment what things are going to have a dramatic impact. Anybody that's heard of like an inverted yield curve, that's one of those things that they say, oh, that's a predictor of a recession. I love the saying, you know, it's predicted 15 of the last 5 recessions, right? It can be there, it's an indicator, but it's also not right all the time. It's just another potential sign, but not a real predictor of what the future is going to hold. So, right, just to reiterate, the stock market, it's giving off clues, an infinite number of clues every single day. But the truth is, it's still unknowable what the future is going to hold. It's impossible to know which ones will be predictive. And I think we naturally kind of look back and say, how did I miss those signs? Or we latch onto these stories of people that, oh man, they timed it perfectly. If you've seen the movie The Big Short, it's these mystical figures that were so smart to have figured it out in the moment. And the truth is, it probably has more to do with luck than it does to do with actually outsmarting things, right? There's geniuses that are trying to time the market every single day, and only 1 or 2 get lucky based purely on probability more than on actually outsmarting the market. The reason I like to bring this up is because there's really negative consequences to trying to do so, to trying to interpret these impossible clues to what's going to happen in the future. And the big impact of that is having your money outside of the market. So days outside the market. And the catch with trying to time the market is really that you have to get it right twice, right? Maybe you get lucky and you time it correctly and you figured out, okay, this is the right time for me to get out. But you also need to know the exact right time to buy back into the market. And it's more gambling than it is an investment strategy. What's made it especially dangerous is technology is now sped up the rate of these swings. What we see is now the market drops significantly faster and it rises significantly faster. And if you're missing out on these, it has a pretty unforgiving impact on your investments, on your retirement. So I love this chart that shows exactly what the impact looks like if you did miss out on the best days in the market. So if we look at things, we'll get a highlighter here, right? So looking at the last 15 years, the last 15 calendar years, if you stayed invested, you had a 9% rate of return on your money, which is not bad. If you put in $10,000, you finish with about $36,000. So pretty good. If you missed out on just the 10 best days, right, your 9% dropped to only 4.13%. Pretty dramatic, right? If you say, oh, I'm gonna take a gamble and try and figure out the right time to get out. If you got out at the wrong time and you missed just 10 days of the market, it dropped your return in less than half. If you start missing out on significant chunks of time, it's pretty dramatic. As I said, technology has really sped up the things, sped up the movement of the market, and as a result, it's easy to miss out on these major returns that are involved. So having said that, I realize that it's really, really difficult to take no action, right? Most of us are action oriented that, okay, if there's a lot of volatility going on out there, I should be doing something to take advantage. And so I always like to include some steps that you can do instead that you can do to try and take advantage of things. So the first is doing some tax smart moves. The second is taking advantage of dollar cost averaging into the market. And then the third is a reminder on rebalancing. So we'll start talking about tax. The first and a really cool tool, and I can't stress enough, is if this is going to be a lower income year for you. So if you or a spouse, if you see that your household has a lower income this year, maybe you had fewer hours or somebody got furloughed or has some time off that's unpaid, that means your tax bracket's likely falling. Now is the perfect time to utilize Roth, right? Anytime that you're in a low tax year, using a Roth option makes a ton of sense. Anytime you're in a high tax year, that's where you want to do the pre-tax. So if you do see a change in your income in this year, take advantage of that Roth tool, a really cool way to minimize your long-term taxes. The second is if you have a taxable account. So if you have an account that's not a 401k, it's not an IRA, it's not one of your pre-tax or Roth type accounts, but it's just an outside brokerage account, there's a decent chance that you have some losses in it. Take advantage of that. So if you recognize those losses, say you're owning Fund A and you have a $5,000 loss in it, if you sell from Fund A and you buy into Fund B, that $5,000 loss can then be used to deduct against your taxes. So kind of capitalize on the down market. You still want to be invested in the market, but if you can move around to save yourself some taxes, is a good maneuver. It gets a little bit more complex than that. So if you want some help, certainly happy to help walk you through the process. And then the third is a reminder on the overlooked gem, the most tax efficient account out there, and that's the HSA account. So if you have a high deductible plan, utilizing your HSA is the most tax efficient vehicle out there. Most platforms allow you to invest those dollars. So if you're not using them for current medical expenses, you do have the ability to invest some of it. So a lot of them have a threshold that says you need to keep $1,000 in cash. Everything above that you can invest. All of the growth on that is completely tax-free if taken out for medical expenses. So really cool, really great tool out there. If you're not maxing out your HSA, maybe now's the right time to consider doing so. The next technique that you can do while the market's down is taking advantage of dollar cost averaging. And I like to bring up the stock market roller coaster, right? Of something that I think is familiar for a lot of us. You get your statement in the mail, right? And as things are going up, you feel optimistic, you feel really excited. Then things are maybe down 5 or 10%, and you feel a little bit nervous. You get to the bottom, and you say, "Okay, I'm ready to get cashed out." Right? I'm feeling depressed, and then things start starting up again, and then you cycle back to this end. And the problem is that when you feel best is in the moment of most risk, right? And when you feel worst is actually the most opportunity that's in the market. Warren Buffett famously said, my entire investment strategy is to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful while others are greedy. And so what's really cool, a tool built into the 401k is what they call dollar cost averaging, which is basically when you invest the same amount of money into the market, every time that the market's up, right? So in this scenario, January is up, you buy fewer shares while the market's up, and you buy more shares while the market's down. You're basically automatically doing what Buffett's trying to do, right? You're being somewhat fearful while others are greedy, and greedy while others are fearful. And what's nice is your paycheck's automatically doing that, right? The 401k automatically takes the same amount, invested into the market. If things are down, you buy more. If things are up, you buy a little less. So really, really nice tool to take advantage of some of the volatility we've seen. The next and final maneuver that I'm recommending to people is to rebalance your account. So say that your normal allocation on the day-to-day is 75% stocks and 25% bonds. Maybe in the midst of some of the market volatility, what we see is that stocks have dropped and some bonds have gone up. So maybe your account's now at a 50-50. Mainly from the stock portion dropping from $20 a share to $10 a share. Now is the right time to rebalance, right? To sell some of the stock portion of things, sell off of this piece, and buy when things are at a discount, right? Bring things back to your 75-25 mix, automatically sells from kind of the winning portion and buys, sells the cream off the top and buys things at a discount. So good reminder to go in and rebalance your account. Most of the platforms allow you to do it automatically also. So you can say, I want to make sure I'm doing this at least twice a year to sell from the winners and buy from the discounted ones. Be sure to go in and do that, but you can do it offhand if you don't already have it automated. So those were the topics I wanted to cover today. I did see that a couple questions had come through. So if you do have questions, please feel free to utilize that Q&A button at the top. Again, if you are interested in more individualized questions, or if you're just more comfortable not having your question read in front of the webinar, please feel free to reach out. My email address and my direct phone number are right here. More than happy to do it. Before I tackle questions, I know some people will probably head out because we're running up on our 15-minute time. I do like to say thank you. Thank you for the business and trust that you place with us at Sage Rutty. Thank you for your time this afternoon. And most importantly, thank you to all of our essential workers, really doing important work, keeping us and our community safe, and we don't take that lightly. So I'll address some questions. Please feel free to submit questions, and I'm happy to help it, and we'll start addressing some of those now.